William Hague, in your column today, Thatcher would not be cutting taxes now, which I suppose wouldn't necessarily come as a huge surprise to everyone. But are you dismayed by the rush by most of the candidates in the Tory leadership contest for them to say who can cut the most taxes?
Well, yes, I am, really. That's obviously why I've written this column this morning, and particularly as many of them seem to invoke Margaret Thatcher, and say, go and talk to Margaret Thatcher about how tax cuts got the economy going and so on. And I'm just pointing out that her view was, and the view of many of us, is tax cuts have to be earned, and you still have to have a country that is creditworthy and where we don't balance the budget these days, but you can't let the budget deficit get completely out of control. And so her view, Margaret Thatcher's view, was always, well, good financial management eventually leads to tax cuts. It's not that you solve all your problems that way. So I think there has been too much emphasis in this leadership election so far from some of the candidates on that. On the tax cut issue. They're trying to differentiate themselves, of course, from each other and from the immediate past Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, so one can understand it in a way, but there's too much focus and too many promises being made on that at the moment.
So Rishi Sunak then, William Hague, I would suggest is perhaps the person that you would perhaps fall into line behind most, because he is saying, let's get the economy fixed, or let's get inflation down anyway, whatever that means, under control. And then we can look at cutting taxes. Is he your man, Rishi Sunak?
Yes, he is, basically. Yes, he is. I think what is needed in this job, it's an incredibly difficult job to be the next Prime Minister of the UK, but it needs a combination of experience at the top level of government, real discipline on the economic side, what we've just been talking about, and the ability to generate some excitement for the future. And I think he is now, of course, in a way, I'm biased. He was succeeded me in my constituency of Richmond, Yorkshire. So I've known him very, very well for the last 7 years and come to admire him. But yeah, this combination of factors does mean that, he would be my man. I'm not an MP anymore, of course, but if I was, I would be nominating him today.
Okay. Emma, what do you think of Rishi Sunak's, I was going to say his kind of rejuvenation, because things were going great for him. And then he ran into a bit of trouble over the non-dom status of his wife. There was that lockdown party fine, and things kind of fell away again. Then he resigned, obviously. And now he seems to be the front runner so far, although, things could change because at various stages of this process, it's going to be different people voting. Do you think that his tax stance is clever?
I do, actually. And the reason why I say that is because the talk obviously the electorate for the Tory leadership is the Tory party. It's not the general electorate. And it's always said, well, they're older, they tend to be more right wing, but there's nothing to me that suggests that they're particularly out of line with the electorate. And as far as I can tell from polling and from talking to people and looking at the comments on Times Online, the electorate's not stupid. The electorate doesn't expect to get something for nothing. I think they feel slightly alarmed by the idea of lots of promises of fantastical tax cuts. And so I think his sort of showing a bit of steel and saying, actually, we're going to have to fix inflation before we put up taxes, perhaps will in the end work for him. He's always been whenever, we've spoken to him all, when he talks, he's got this, I hope not naive approach, which is that if you level with the public, if you tell them the truth, if you're honest about what, the situation we're in, they will respond. I hope he's right about that. I don't know.
Emma, just one thing I would say, though, you talk about the electorate, and those are presumably the people that are texting us. And a lot of people say, well, why is everyone talking about tax? Why are they not talking about the cost of living? Because they're not the two same things. Many people saying, well, 1 pence in tax is going to make no difference to me right now. My problem right now is supermarket prices, it's the cost of petrol, it's my energy prices. Have the leadership candidates actually missed a trick here?
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. I think they have, for some weird reason, they've all seemed to have coalesced around this issue of tax. Whereas I think what people really want to hear is, I mean, Sajid Javid, for example, is talking about cutting taxes. He, of all people, should know what the problems are in the NHS. And anyone who's had anything to do with the NHS recently will see that. They want to know what's a credible plan for cutting the backlogs, what's a credible plan for helping the kids who fell behind during COVID at school. What is a credible plan for helping people with their energy bills? Instead of this sort of bizarre fixation around cutting, well, ultimately, taxes that won't make it a huge, huge difference to people's income at the moment.
So why has that happened then, William? We're going to talk about the presentation of all of this because, this is a sell job that they're all engaged in. And we've seen some silly videos. We're going to see some media appearances. This is a sell job that they're engaged in. Why? What do they think they're doing by constantly talking about tax, William, do you think?
Well, it's partly the result of agreeing about so many other things, of course. So, here we're talking about the disagreement. One of the reasons of this disagreement is they all agree on a lot of other key things. So for instance, high standards of integrity in number 10 Downing Street. Well, surprise, surprise. They all agree about that. And that is going to be very important after what just happened to Boris Johnson. But there's no argument about that. And support for Ukraine and Britain being in the lead, something Boris Johnson, in my view, has done very well. They all agree about that. No change in British foreign policy with a change of prime minister. So they end up fighting over this territory. And it is also partly because Rishi is the front runner. And then on the point that you were all just making about cost of living, if you had some money to spare, if the government this autumn has some money to spare, what would be the best use of it? Well, probably it would be to give people more help with their energy bills. They're going to get £400 for every household. If energy bills rocket further, there would be a good case for having more of that. So you would actually save up spare money for that, not make big corporation tax cuts now. But that's what Rishi Sunak was just doing, this help for households. So the others are trying to differentiate themselves from that. Sorry, that's a long explanation, but that's why they're all on about this.
That's interesting. Emma, there's lots of big, great pieces in the Sunday Times this weekend about the sort of the smearing that's going on. How dirty is this campaign going to get? How dirty do you think it is already?
Well, I think it's very funny. William says they all agree on the need for integrity. And of course, what a wonderful thing to agree on. But judging by the campaign, that's slightly, I'm not sure that we're going to see much of that. I mean, there was a piece that our political editor wrote about the sort of smears and sort of dirty tricks being played that was so lurid. I had to actually sort of go back to her and say, "Are you sure about this?" But she was reporting what people are saying, which was rumours about candidates getting involved in bondage, domination, sadomasochism, inappropriate relationships, compromat, and these dossiers being passed from candidates to the Labour Party for the Labour Party to sort of use. I mean, this is what people are saying. I'm sure that there's a lot that's hugely exaggerated, but so far, anyway, it doesn't seem to me that it's being conducted in what might describe as a particularly grown-up fashion.
No, maybe it'll get more grown up when there's just two people left and they have to sort of wander around the country debating each other. Emma, will the Times and the Sunday Times, will you declare for a candidate? Does that make any difference these days? Is that an old-fashioned idea, or is that something you might do?
Do you know what? I haven't even thought about that. I think there's enough information out there, I think, for people to make up their own minds. I mean, every columnist will have a view. Yeah. There's social media. I'm not sure to what extent. Don't want to do down the dominance or the importance of newspapers, to what extent what the Times or the Sunday Times thinks about these things anymore particularly affects the way people make up their minds. I think the important thing for us is to really report the issues so people can make up their own minds.
Yeah, that's a very good point. William, just to find on this point, does it matter that the Daily Mail will go behind Liz Truss? Does that matter at all? Paul Dacre's likely to go headbanging for someone. It's probably going to be Liz Truss. Do you think that's important?
Well, Emma's right that people make up their own minds. They have many sources of information, so that the press will be all in different directions. Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph, The Times, the sort of papers that Conservative Party members read. But really, all you need to know, since Matthew Paris argued for Rishi Sunak on Saturday in the Times, and I've been doing so today, that's it, isn't it? Really, I mean, that is the consensus
Done.
established.
It's over.
William, I just wanted just one other thing in your column, which I highly recommend everyone to read. You've also been talking about something that we've mentioned today, which is the diversity of the candidates. You've said the field of candidates to replace Boris Johnson is the most diverse in British political history. Of the 11 declared contenders, as I write, 6 are from ethnic minorities and 4 are women. And you talk about swelling with pride at that. Can I just put a point of view to you, and you're the best person, I think, to perhaps answer this, if you don't mind. Because many people are saying that this is true and that Labour actually perhaps should be playing catch up. But someone has got in touch with us and said the Tories may have diversity within their ranks, but it's a shame that those at the top of the party have some pretty right-wing views and support sending asylum seekers to Rwanda and describe those wishing a kinder society as woke. How would you respond to that?
Well, that then takes you into, first of all, I think it's unarguable that there is that diverse representation at the top of the Conservative Party. But there, the person asking that question is then trying to take that into automatically assuming that leads to certain policies. It begs the question, what is the kind policy on illegal immigration? Is it a kind policy to say, no, we will certainly not send people to Rwanda? Or is it a kind policy to say, well, we will send people to Rwanda because we're trying to stop people from being trafficked into the UK and exploited by people smugglers and know what the consequences are. So diversity does not necessarily mean, I think it's now an out-of-date idea that diversity means you automatically adopt some left-wing policies. This is the whole point. The Conservative Party is diverse, but it will still produce conservative policies.
Well, speaking of illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, etc., you will have all seen the big story of the day, the incredible revelation about Mo Farah. His actual name is Hussein Abdi Kahin. Olympic stars revealed he was brought to the UK illegally as a child under his new name. So he didn't come here, he was brought here and forced to work as a domestic servant. The Home Office have said that he's not going to face any kind of action. He's not going to be deported. But Emma, I'll come to you in a second, but William, if he wasn't a massively successful athlete, just an ordinary citizen, do you think the story would be the same from the Home Office?
Well, I hope it would be the same after this distance of time, really, because, partly because he was trafficked as a child, it turns out, and that's not really something in which he should not be penalized for that, what happened to him as a child. But also it's now a long time ago. I certainly hope that the view the Home Office have expressed that they wouldn't be taking any action about this would be consistent for anybody else in that situation.
Emma, what do you think? First of all, what do you think of the story, and what do you think that the story would be different if he was not Sir Mo Farah?
Well, it's an incredible story. I think it's amazing that Mo Farah managed to keep it under wraps for so long. I mean, you know, it just goes to show how traumatized or frightened he was of his own story that he didn't talk about it for such a long time. I think he told his wife about it, but even his own children didn't know. I think it's a sad story. There are elements that are rather wonderful about it, not least the role that his PE teacher played, Alan Watkinson, in spotting his talent and also spotting that he was in a dire situation. And I think, you know, it's often the case with these incredible stories of immigrants. There's very often there's a teacher at the heart of it, a teacher who spots someone and champions them. And so on that front, there's an uplifting element to the story. As to whether or not he would have been treated differently, I think because he was a child. I mean, you know, the Home Office is rigorous, but it's not. You know, there are rules around children who are trafficked. So I don't suppose it would have been different, whether he was Sir Mo or not.
Last story. I don't know if you've noticed, both of you, but it's a little bit hot out there. British people love to talk about the weather. They love to moan about the weather. We can do that for 3 more minutes only. It's going to get hotter. William, at what point, maybe this happens already, does the heat, people will say it's just summer, it gets hot in summer, stop moaning about it. But at what point will these summers that we may start getting become a sort of policy position for the government. We actually have to start building our lives differently, building our buildings differently to try and cope with heat that may come more regularly at a high level over the course of the summer.
Well, I think we will. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit late. We've got so many buildings. It's a bit hard to adapt them to that, but everybody will have to do their best. I hope it doesn't lead to a massive air conditioning all around the country. I really hate air conditioning. Let's open lots of windows. People need fresh air. But
when the air's hot, William, that's not very good. You're going to be one of those people where people are sweaty. So open the window. The outside's hot as well, William.
They will have to adapt, and we will all have to adapt. I mean, when I go into London later today, I'm going to go to my office in a short-sleeved shirt, and that is a revolution in my life. So we will have to adapt in many ways.
Now,
but no, it's a very serious thing actually, because it's the way the climate is going. We are going to see more of this, and it just puts into perspective all those people who say, oh, we can go easy on climate change and renewable energy while we're dealing with the problems of today. No, the real big problem of today that is looming over us is the climate is changing quickly, and we cannot neglect that subject.
William, you're absolutely right, but you know yourself that some of the leadership candidates have criticised net zero emissions targets, haven't they? I mean, I don't think Rishi Sunak has, but some of them have.
No, well, any who do that, no one should vote for them, because this is the biggest challenge for humanity, and this is a reminder of what is coming. And we've seen in India temperatures getting into the high 40s, too hot for human beings to function.
Yeah.
That is the way the world is going at the moment.